Yes, Vijay. So, when you talk about innovation, right? So, these new startups, as you know, there are many startups coming up and providing very good applications, would be softwares. And they introduce, at start, they introduce one or two model of feature, and then later, by looking at the adoption or the consumption of users, and they start giving more and more features into it. So, where does the model of innovation plays a vital role over here?
This is again a very interesting insight, and this requires some amount of thinking now. The the way the product development, the physical and the digital, has grown over the last 15-20 years. There are two models. One is something called as incremental innovation. Means you create a core and then you keep on patching new entities on top which are related to that. It's like single blade razor, then double blade, then triple blade razor. So you're not thinking on that lines that if the problem is to remove hair, are there some other methods also to remove hair, right? Whether they are bacterial based, cream based methods, or they are laser cutting ones, which are very precise engineering solutions, right? So we keep on heading in the same dimension. That's a problem most of the applications are headed. So they want to keep on catering to wider and wider audience, and your screen space. The fundamental problem there is to solve more complex problems. Sometimes a larger canvas is required, and you have a small same in 6-inch screen. You start with few features, you keep on patching up new features on top and top and top, and then eventually the solution starts becoming extremely cluttered. There as well, one has to think whether what part of my audience and what percentage of my audience need to be retained. Who is my core? We are purely looking at the revenue model over here. Which are my core users? And if I acquire new core, the peripheral users, are my value features being compromised? Are they getting sidelined? And that's a mistake we do most of the time. We try and lift one feature. The most frequently used applications or the most frequently used features are hidden somewhere because they know users will eventually reach over there. But is that the right criteria? It's almost like saying I enter into the kitchen and I take half an hour to look out where the sugar and where the tea is, though they should be the most accessible ones, right? And one has to also figure out why I'm entering the kitchen. So there as well, if designers and product managers effectively start looking at to the way we did our day-to-day solutions. Let's take the example of the traditional house, right? So in the context of a traditional house, there are people who are not invited inside the home. To understand this, the best we can do is we can also look at the traditional medias of the way we design spaces. Let's take the example of a home in the traditional realm. So there are various functions which a home provides you or it facilitates. Cut to like even an application design, let's say a ride hailing app. You've got a segment which is for payments where you store some money or you store some checkbooks which has to be signed, which is like an OTP sign, and then it get encashed, right? Then you also store some rights, then you also define few preferences. The application has to remember whose name it or whose home it is, right? So if you see those analogies and reinvent few things and possibly relook at the past, the way we designed. So I'm coming back to homes over there. So somebody who's an outsider, who's still a guest, but he's not a guest where you directly make him enter into the bedroom or to the kitchen. They'll be made to sit outside. In traditional homes, there are also places for visitors, which is open to everybody. That same model can be applied to a freemium model where you try something, right? You are not insulting somebody. You are there, but you're still not there. I'm not parking your data. So you check out as a guest. You do something and then you check out as a guest. In that order, if you start looking at various functions of a puja room or a kitchen, right, or a bedroom, the trouble happens when a guest comes and in the modern architecture style, the way we are doing applications where every product manager, the problems they want all features on the upper fold canvas. Nobody wants below the fold. Nobody wants scrolls, right? And if everything has to be given on the home screen, you are just cluttering the entire screen with loads of feature without thinking whether my user is a guest, whether my user is a pujari who has to directly go to the puja room, or my user is a housemaid who doesn't need to go anywhere except the kitchen for the first occasion, right? Right? So you need to define that, and hence this logic is slightly debatable on the privacy concern. That means someone needs to remember whether this repeat user will go to that room for that purpose or not. You need to open few channels for something to be remembered, else at every time you will enter and every time somebody will ask who are you, And then this, I'm a maid. Okay, do you want to go? Right? I want to go to the kitchen. So your user journey cycle increases a lot. So these examples beautifully exist in regular interaction pattern, and the way we lived our lives at homes, at temples, at mosques. It answers everywhere. We just need to sometimes look beyond the traditional medium of looking at the application development cycle the way we have been taught, right? Look at the social structure from the old people and possibly relook at how we can ease out the process entirely. Lastly, over there, if uh, I'm doing a train booking, let's say today, and in the train booking segment, there are other things as well. Within that canvas of train booking, I'm also offered hotel booking, I'm also offered flight booking, I'm also offered cab booking, and there are various other things as well. But what is my primary goal over there? My primary goal at that space of time is to look for a train, right? There as well, one can actually think through the primary user purpose such that if 90% of users are looking for a specific use, that has to be there upfront and that problem has to be solved friction free. Rest all can be there as part of some kind of an annexure where people go browse, provided they accidentally discover. Lastly, this is the same problem in the software development world. I'm aggravating the problem. Today, you purchase, let's say, a word editing software, or you purchase a photo editing software. It's been surveyed enough that only 15% of features are used. Not more than 15% of features are used because human memory has to memorize those many data chunks, which is not possible. So most of the work is getting done with 13 to 15% of features. Hence, we spend development time on those balance 85%. Hence, we keep on charging our customers, which is absolutely a futile attempt.
So, Vijay, as you rightly said about the problem statement, why don't then, how is it possible? Like, is it possible to design a one stop solution or a common solution for all sort of personas? Like, if I have multiple personas, can I design a common solution for all of my target audience?
It answer is no actually,
Okay.
and the system need to be auto tameable as per a certain audience. Now it's not easy. It's actually it's very easy to say that, but it's difficult to do. The reason being, there are two type of audiences we now have. One is absolutely a trained audience, and that is where there is a set of a system which is called as knowledge in the world. So knowledge in the world are the people who effectively handle a lot of interactions with digital gadgets, electronics, cars and everything. These people by default their memory patterns are more trained as compared to somebody who asks somebody to switch on the light or who asks somebody to drive for me or who asks somebody to withdraw money for me or book a ticket for me. It's actually one word command, but someone else is doing that micro interactions over there. That means all the patterns are stored in X person's brain. Now if I look at a particular solution, I need to find out whether a trained user is using that or a novice or somebody who is absolutely new. And if my audience, again, it's a business strategy, if I'm targeting somebody who is a new user and the person has got barely 15% of a tech background, despite of the fact that the person can be a CEO, right? But still the person, the business entity need to define that whether who is my target audience in that sense, and if my earning is going to be high with that person, I may not design that solution as per someone who is born and brought up and raised in technology interactions. That is where fundamentally we are going wrong when we design interactions for bar phones, especially bar phones or mobile phones versus desktop. Desktop offers you a larger canvas for people who are very well versed with handling multiple data inputs like Excel, Microsoft, or something can handle multiple interactions at a time. Right? It's easier, but same amount of interactions and same features plastered on a mobile phone is a disaster. Only a trained mind can possibly do that. So hence, one size fits all doesn't really work. One has to really carefully look at the TG and possibly design a separate product. In a simple way, this is like saying an X solution payment for someone who's expert in the payment systems and payments for beginners, right?
So, as you rightly mentioned, the payment for beginners, it relates to the gaming world where you
Exactly.
normally log in and it asks you that are you playing it for first time, are you a beginner, amateur,
Correct.
and the stages increases.
Right. Simple, intermediary, and I think advanced.
Yes.
Yeah. Beginner we call this.
I just want to ask one last question where how beneficial is this like doing UX surveys or ethnographic people studies before designing, like before designing anything,
Right.
how beneficial is it, or one should directly opt for design?
Hmm. This is a very difficult question, and it has a slightly long, winding answer. So, when we study somebody, whether as a technologist or as a designer, we always have a lens, which is a judgmental lens. And we always bring that judgmental lens when we design that particular solution. Let's say consider a family whose annual earning is between the range of 1 crores to 2 crores per annum, right? It's an upper middle class. The word is upper middle class, or possibly slightly elite class, right? Their children, due to certain understanding, will possibly find it difficult to understand the difference between 40 rupees and 50 rupees, right? Because the ratio changes, the decision making pattern changes completely in the family. There's one iPad and then there's a new version comes in, and it's just a subtle demand and it's served, right? There could be a possibility like that. Under that understanding, like the value of even 55,000 rupees is not there, not even for 60,000 rupees. Cut to a situation, if I've grown up in that environment where I came home during the first day on earth, like when let's say the person was a 1 day old baby, like in a Honda City or in a Skoda or at least a BMW, right? Understanding of this particular child's world will be very different as compared to somebody who is who has come home on an auto rickshaw, right? Let's understand this aspect. Now, this person, due to some good education, has become a designer, because design education also these days is getting expensive, right? The person has now started to design, let's say, for a particular organization, and application is designing for women for underprivileged such that they have access to good water, right? How much we think will this person will be able to understand the problem of that landscape, right? It's difficult. It's difficult. Unless the person has a very, very humble heart, the person is brought up in a situation where some amount of humility was infused in the person. So what happens? The service becomes quite judgmental, and designer by that time is already exposed to a lot of application development. You ask somebody that some a particular theater wants to create an application design for booking theater seats for a show, right? You invariably reach towards the most common popular application for booking movie shows, right? It's very, very difficult to get out of the trap. That is where the personas that you define, the user service you do, they come out with predictable results. There's a lot of I which enter into that. It's very, very difficult to come out with, and that is where advertising did some great journeys where they used to find out if a let's say a ghee, right, is selling at a cost of 450 for a half kg versus somebody which is selling at 450 for a full kg. What is the value of the ghee to a particular society? There are societies where the monthly earning is barely 4,000 rupees a month, right? Will they really afford a 450 rupees worth of a ghee, right? So that means they need some kind for one time. They need a ghee sachet. We still don't have that, right? So these insights are important when we have an intermixing of a team, and due to some nature or the other, and that's a problem with most of the senior leaders in design fraternity, they shy away from hiring people who are from humble backgrounds. They need to have people who have come up from small towns, who had very, very humble upbringing. They somehow made it to the design world, because these are the real rich class of people who will bring the true insight about life, which is absolutely missing right now when we have people who are either a complete Delhi group or a complete Mumbai group or a complete Bangalore group who grew up in pubs, whose basic pocket money was 4,000, 5,000 rupees. It's very, very difficult for them to understand when someone is booking a ticket for 500 rupees and that money gets stuck in a payment gateway, what kind of agony somebody may have. And they might think, what is in 500 rupees? They will never get the real emotion behind the 500 rupees.
I think the point made by you, Vijay, was very valid, which I relate to it when you said that your payment, it takes some minutes or few seconds to pass the payment, but by that time, to some audience, it is very difficult to wait and hold by just thinking कि मेरा payment होगा कि नहीं,
Yeah.
that. So which you rightly said that for some audience it's very difficult until and unless they are humble enough to relate to the same emotion, right? So yeah, I think this was really very good talk with you, Vijay. So far, since talking about interaction design, we discussed a lot about interaction. We discussed about jungle ancestral knowledge. We discussed about the natural biological designs and many other stuff.
Yeah.
I think this was the most insightful talk I ever had. So thank you so much, Vijay, joining. Thank you so much.
Thanks to all professors. I think they taught us well, I guess.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for calling.